Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Color Grading Your Videos. I am your host, Daniel Schiffer, and I'm super excited to be bringing you this new series where you guys send me your footage and I color grade it right here on the channel. Now, a couple of things before we dive in, I do want to quickly explain how this series is going to work. Every week, I will be featuring footage from 3 of you guys in hopes that we can all get better and more comfortable with color grading. Now, the purpose of these videos isn't to follow along step by step and copy the color grades that I'm doing, but rather the goal is to get a better understanding of the workflow and the thought process behind color grading so that no matter what type of footage is thrown at you, you're prepared to tackle it so that you know where to start and also how to get the end result that you're looking for. So our very first submission comes from Pixel Sammy, who's given us 2 clips here of either himself or his friend holding a camera on a bright sunny day. Now, when you're color grading pretty much any video, the very first thing you want to do is fix your footage by performing what's called a color correction. Now, within a color correction, there's a whole bunch of things that you can fix or tweak, but today we're focusing on exposure, white balance, and color casts. Now, right away, just by looking at this first clip, I can tell that it is slightly overexposed. I can confirm this by hitting Command 7 on my keyboard to open up my scopes, and looking at the Luma waveform, you can see that we are in fact losing detail in the highlights because all of this information is clipping above 100. Now, to bring that back, I'm going to add Color Finale Pro to my first clip, open the controls, and add a new color wheels layer. Now, here we have 3 different color wheels. We have our lift, our gamma, and our gain, which control our shadows, midtones, and highlights respectively. Now, because we can tell right away that we're losing a lot of information in the highlights, that's where we're gonna start. So I'm gonna go into the gain control and just start pulling down until our highlights are below 100. Next, I'm going to move on to the gamma and start pulling down our midtones, and I'm really just using my eye here. And lastly, our lift will pull down our shadows. So now that we've successfully fixed our exposure and brought back a lot of that lost detail, we can start fixing our white balance. I'm going to create a new color wheels layer, and I'm going to work in the gain color wheel. Now, looking at this footage, we definitely do have a little bit of a green color cast, and I know this because our skin tones are looking a little bit green, so I'm just gonna pull away from green in this gain channel. And if we turn this off and then back on, you can see the big difference this has made. It definitely looks more balanced, so we're officially ready to start color grading or creating our look. So I'm gonna close this color finale window and close our scopes, and I'm actually gonna add a new color finale effect to the same clip, and in here I am going to start making our grade. So whenever you're starting a new color grade, you wanna look at your footage and ask yourself, what can this footage benefit from? How can I enhance it? How can I make it better? In this case, I think that we can definitely create more of a separation from our subject to the background. As you can see, our subject is wearing green stripes on his shirt, but the background also has a lot of green in both the grass and the trees. So to do this, I'm gonna start in our vectors layer, and I'm going to go into the green channel. I'm going to start pulling down on our hue to bring the stripes on the shirt into more of a bluish aqua color. I'm also going to boost the saturation and pull down the luminosity, and I think that looks pretty good. So now I'm gonna go into the yellow channel, and I'm gonna start pushing that hue in the opposite direction as we did for the green, making our yellow grass a bit more orange. Just making a couple of other tweaks while we're at it, and I think that looks decent. But now I'm gonna go into the red channel and just fix up the skin tones. So overall, I'm pretty content with how this looks. You could leave it just as is, but I do wanna add a little bit of a faded film look with a bit more contrast. So to do this, I'm gonna create a curves layer, make an S curve to add a bit of punchiness, and then I'm just gonna roll off my shadows down low here. But now I'm noticing that the footage does look a little bit oversaturated. So to fix this, I'm just going to make a color wheels layer and bring down our saturation to about 0.85. If we want to bring over these effects to our other clip, all we have to do is click on the first clip, hit Command C on our keyboard, click on our second clip, go up to Edit, Paste Effects, and boom, there it is. So here is the before and after of our first 2 clips. So our second submission here comes from Elizabeth, who's given us this clip of her standing in front of a ride at some sort of fair or carnival, and there is a lot of color to work with in this clip, so I'm super excited to start grading it. Now, one thing worth noting is that if we start this clip from the very beginning, you'll see that the subject is completely stationary and the camera movement is also completely stationary. Now, we can use this to our advantage, and you'll see why in just a minute. So I'm gonna open up my scopes, and you'll see that we are losing a little bit of information in the highlights once again, a above that 100 line. So I'm just gonna go into my color wheels like we did before and bring down our gain to lower the exposure in the highlights, and then do the same in the midtones. Already that's looking a lot better. So I'm gonna close this and bring in a new Color Finale Pro effect to start our grade. So when I think about carnivals or fairs, I picture cotton candy colors. So I think of blues and pinks. So I wanna bring those colors into this shot. And to do so, we're gonna work in our vectors like we did before. And right away, the color that is the most noticeable in this clip is the greens. So I'm gonna go into the green channel of our vectors and just turn down the hue until we're getting a nice sort of aqua teal color. I'll lower the luminosity just a bit and boost our saturation. And then I'm going to go into our red channel and make these look a little bit more pink. We'll do the same in our magenta channel, and we'll just keep playing around with these colors until we're happy with the results we're getting. So the next adjustment we're gonna make is going to be in the curves, and I'm mainly gonna be focusing on her face and bringing enough contrast into her skin so that it looks not as flat. I'm not gonna worry too much about the background. So I'm gonna bring down the shadows and the curves just a bit, maybe bring up the midtones, and then maybe just slightly roll off these highlights. So I'm going to close this, and the next thing I wanna do is really bring down the exposure of the background, but without affecting our subject. And to do this, I actually have another plugin called Color Finale with Shape Mask, and this comes from a company called SliceX, and it basically works the same as our regular Color Finale, but this time we have masks to work with so that we can isolate things in our shot. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit here and make a custom selection around our subject, and that looks pretty good. Now going into our mask options here, I'm going to check off invert mask, and I'm going to turn up the blur strength all the way. Now I'll open the controls, make a color wheels layer, and just start pulling down in the highlights and in the midtones until we're getting a nice punchy, vibrant background that isn't too blown out. And that should just about do it. So here is a before and after of our second submission. So our third submission here comes from James Wills, and we've got two awesome clips of a girl walking through what looks like a desert slash field sort of thing. And with her outfit and this setting, I am getting a lot of vintage vibes. So I really want to push that sort of feel in our color grade. So what I'm going to do, as always, is add Color Finale Pro to our clip, and I'm going to start fixing the exposure. So already our exposure is looking a lot better, and to save us time, I'm going to do our color grade in the same Color Finale window. So to do so, I'm going to open up a new curves layer and start making an S curve to add some contrast to the clip. And I'm gonna roll off these shadows just a bit, as I always do, to get a sort of faded film look. And then I'm going to go into our red curve and start introducing red tones into our lower midtones and shadows, really dialing in that sort of warm vintage feel. And that's looking pretty good, but I'm finding that our overall clip is looking a little oversaturated. So I'm actually gonna go down to our color wheels layer that we made our exposure correction in, and I'm going to bring down our saturation to about 0.94. So now what I want to do is create a bit more contrast between the sky and the terrain. So to do so, I'm going to make an HSL curves layer, and I'm going to start playing around with the blues. I'm going to start in the hue versus hue and isolate an area within the blues and make our blue sky a little bit more of a greenish blue or teal. Let's go into the hue versus saturation and bump up the saturation in our blues, making our sky pop just a little bit more. And lastly, in the hue versus luma, I'm gonna go to the same area and just bring down the luminosity in our sky to darken it up just a bit. So I'm really happy with this color grade, and I like the way the colors look, but you might have noticed that the sky is starting to fall apart. Now, fortunately for Final Cut and Adobe Premiere, there is a plugin called Neat Video, which is kind of like some voodoo magic that reduces noise and artifacting. So I'm going to add that to our clip here, and I'm going to start creating a noise profile. I'm going to make a nice big selection in the sky, and as you can see, it shows us our noise level, and I'll hit auto profile. And then I'm gonna go into our noise filter settings, and I'm going to zoom into our sky and really start dialing in our settings so we can make this look as best as we can. So I'm gonna hit apply, and here is the before and after of our third submission. So a lot of people ask me where I learned all this stuff, if I went to film school, if I had a mentor, and the truth is, everything I know about making videos and editing and color grading is all self-taught through years of consuming online content. Even leading up to this video, I wanted to brush up on my own knowledge of color grading, and thankfully Skillshare had me covered. Now, if you're not already familiar with Skillshare, it's essentially an online learning community for creators with thousands of business, lifestyle, and technology classes. With their premium membership, you get unlimited access to high-quality classes from experts who cover topics such as shooting vlogs, wedding films, documentaries, low-budget filmmaking, and even color grading, all for less than $10 a month. Now, if you want to learn more about color grading but you don't edit in Final Cut Pro 10 like myself, you can check out this course from Jordy Vanderput, where he teaches you all about color grading in Premiere Pro Lumetri. So if you are interested in learning more about Skillshare, the first 500 people to click the link in the description below will get 2 months of Skillshare Premium free. So that is it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Follow me on Instagram at daniel.schiffer, and as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!